Welcome to this week's deep dive. This week, we're back for the year of 2020, and we have the amazing Scott Nussinow, the Executive Vice President of Artwork Services USA. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you very much, and happy 2020 to you.
I know, it's been a very jam-packed year. We had our Promo Kitchen Mixer, we had Expo go on, we had all the other shows, and yeah, so now I think we're getting into the rhythm of 2020, but it's only February. We'll see how it goes. So this week, in the theme of Expo and ASI Orlando and all the different shows that are going on, we started a conversation about organizations. So what is the role of the organization? What do they bring to you? How do they help you? And just kind of explored that on what an organization means. Is it a group like Promo Kitchen? Is it a trade organization like PPAI, etc., Chamber of Commerce, on and on and on. So we had this one question, and we loved your answer to it, of what problems do these organizations solve for you and your company? And you came back was, in my honest opinion, if you're looking for your participation in industry and social organizations to solve problems, you're probably doing it wrong. Connections, friendships, sharing commonalities and differences, these are the lasting currencies of participation. Lots to break down in there. So for you, what does it mean to be part of an organization, and how do you make it work for you? What would be your advice to someone looking to join, being part of it, getting the most out of it? Where would you start?
I would say the first thing I want to do is find organizations that speak to me, or that may speak to me, that have either a mission or a vision that I find personally appealing and potentially fulfilling. Another thing that I look for are the people, and whether or not they're accessible, whether or not they will reach out, bring you in, inculcate these friendships, these relationships. And you can usually tell fairly quickly when you get involved, although not always. Sometimes it takes a little while as a newcomer in an organization to display genuine interest, or not verifiable. I'm looking for a different word here. To basically be seen as somebody who's truly interested in the mission, in the organization.
Yeah, we always talk about it. Promo Kitchen is someone who's really loving the mission and really engaged with it versus someone who wants to put something on their resume.
Right.
Because there are the people that see it as a resume position versus the people who are like, how can I get involved? What do I do? How do I make this work? And you also have it for board members too. For PPAI and everything else, you don't get there easily. You really work, and it means that you want to see changes. So you were on the board for PPAI. How did you find your role in? I'm curious, how did your role in the organization change from a member to board director to back to a member?
Interesting. Well, back in the days when we rode our dinosaurs to work, I was first I joined an organization called YESA, which at the time was Young Executives of Specialty Advertising Association, and I met some really, really great people. Those friendships fostered greater interest in being involved with them, with the organization. And one of the things that happened was participation in YESA led to more involvement in the actual association and its work as well. So I was connecting with not only my peers, but people. I was connecting with people further up the ladder, and people who were older. From there, abbreviating a very long story, I was tapped on the shoulder and asked if I would consider a nomination to the board of directors. And I politely responded to the affirmative. Ended up on the board and just jumped in wholeheartedly. It was so exciting because it was unlike anything I'd ever done before. It was fun. Yes, it was fun, and it was great, and it was educational. Building that camaraderie on the board of directors for PPAI or at the time, well, yeah, at the time it was PPAI.
Still is PPI, isn't it? Or how
Well,
did it
no, what
change?
happened early in the early days, YESA was Young Executives of Specialty Advertising Association. So back then it was Specialty Advertising Association International.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I was
We
a little
still love all
caught
our
up. Yeah,
abbreviations.
but getting involved on the board at PPAI was fascinating. I learned so much more, the intricacies of the industry and best practices beyond our industry. There were so many people that the staff leadership brought in to educate board members. So we drank pretty deeply of that Kool-Aid, had an opportunity to be on a number of different committees within the association. And then unplugging was, it was challenging, quite frankly, because you had the keys to the inner sanctum, and then the next day it's like, Scott who?
Yeah.
It was funny. There's actually been some very, very cute banter back and forth between Paul Bellantone and Dale Denham.
Yeah.
Dale who?
Yeah, Dale, where Paul's threatening to block
it really is interesting once you've been to the mountaintop and you're on the downside of it. You're not discarded by any stretch of the imagination, and I applaud everything that any volunteer does for the association on behalf of the association. But once you're removed from it, you wake up and you realize, I guess I have a little more time in my schedule.
Yeah. I do have to say, every time I've been on a committee and I've moved from the committee, like, there's this yearning of, like, sort of, you get really excited because you're like, look at my free time. I'm managing to enjoy things as a participant instead of a manager. But at the same time, you're like, but I want back in. I want where the cool kids are.
There's that. There's no question about it. And yeah, there was something that was prior to the broadcast. You and I were speaking very briefly about the calendar. As a member of the board, staff would print out a calendar, and I was booked usually three different places simultaneously.
Yeah.
So
you get all your steps into
all over the place. Which is why when I see friends who are on the board now, I'm not offended at all when they're racing from one position to another, one place to another, simply because I understand.
Yeah.
But it also led me, after that, it led me to joining other organizations. The one that really spoke to me was PPCEF, which later became PPEF, the Education Foundation, Continuing Education Foundation. And that, among others, became my next point of involvement. And I loved everything we did. I loved what the mission was, the people that I worked with. And I can't speak enough to those experiences, but I digress.
So I'm always interested because I feel like if you aren't super active in something, then you don't always see the advantages. So you hear a lot of people talk about how organizations like PPI, PPPC, the Canadian version,
Mm-hmm.
NSI they're just the trade show, and they don't bring value to you because, well, everything's online anyway. But they're always more than that. Like, so they are education, or PPI like does a lot of advocacy. ASI is amazing with their stats. I feel like they are under recognized for like the science they bring to the
Mm-hmm.
industry. So what would be your advice to someone beyond like get involved? Is how would you say is like that to explore organization more? Like, what would be the first step, or even the step beyond get involved, like to make sure that whatever you're paying your membership dues in, is that, if you don't know what it does, is that a reflection of the organization, or is that a reflection of you, or you're not too busy to kind of make sure you're taking advantage of everything?
I would say the first thing that you want to do is ask questions, talk to peers, talk to customers, talk to competitors. One of you mentioned before about how everything is available online. Real relationships aren't available online. Real relationships are formed when you have the warmth of someone's hand in yours. Real relationships are when you're at point blank looking into someone's eyes. Real relationships are where competitors can sit across the table from one another and share ideas. That's where a lot of these different organizations bring such value, if you will, almost hidden value to the equation, to the experience. I found that, for instance, with PPEF, something, again, in which I believe very, very strongly, and I urge everyone to contribute to PPEF, give till it hurts. And I found that I was sitting around the table with people who were newer to the industry, who were looking for knowledge. And I was also sitting around the table with industry icons and people who, whose lunchbox I couldn't carry. And it was amazing how the barriers broke down. And I made it a point, because others had done this for me, to reaching to other people, to newbies, if you will, and to helping them along. But the discussion, back to your point, the discussion about what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go, where I'm going to invest my time, start by talking with friends, start by talking with competitors, and start with talking to vendors or customers. I think that's the best place to go. And also look for where the cool kids are.
Yeah, I know. Even with Promo Kitchen, some days I'm like, Danny Rosen and Mark Graham answer my emails. I'm like, they think that I have something to say. Which,
perfect example.
Yeah.
There doesn't. If you spend time and you read and you watch, there are two names, between Mark and Danny, and there are so many others who really push all of us to be better versions of ourselves, and to do things that really may have existed before, either in theory or on the back of a cocktail napkin, whatever it might be, but who've actually stepped out and done something. Those are the people, how can you not want to be around that?
Yeah, I always think is like, when you volunteer or when you're part of something like that, you always get more out of it than you give in, but you have to be willing to give in a little bit for it, like sort of your time, your knowledge, your wealth, like all of it. So here's my question for you. What do you think is an underutilized or underused portion of these organizations? What do you think that you're like, I wish more people did X with PPI, or were a bigger part of this? Like when you were on the board of directors of PPI, was there an aspect of the group that you just kind of thought wasn't being taken advantage of properly?
It really does vary with the organization, but I would say the one thing that is really at the crux of every organization and its success or failure is communication. I've been on certain organizations, or involved with certain organizations with an extraordinary mission, with extraordinary people and volunteers, but their ability to communicate beyond the confines of the meeting room may not have been as good as they should have been. I think that the biggest single weakness with most organizations has been the ability to communicate. What are you trying to communicate? To whom are you trying to communicate? And how effective are you really? Not, oh, what a great ad, what a great press release that was, but are you truly resonating with people? So I think that communications sometimes gets short shrift with organizations, and understandably, in that a lot of these organizations, if not most of them, are run by lay leaders. We all have day jobs. So there's a certain amount that we can bring to the party, but at the end of the day, that's not necessarily what pays the bills. I'm involved with one organization that I think is fantastic, but their communications and their outreach isn't quite what it should be. And as a result, it's not resonating with enough of a potential audience. And I think if it were packaged a little bit differently, there'd be a lot more, there'd be people standing in line to get in.
Yeah, I always think of this in like with, since being part of like Promo Kitchen, is I'm always shocked with people who don't know who we are and what like what initiatives we offer. And again, I think the team works amazing and they're fabulous that way, but it's one of those with so many messages coming at you, how do you make sure we're targeting the right people? It's the same with like sales and marketing as your actual job is like, how do you make sure your message is being taken advantage of? And I'm going to do a plug here because Johanna would be mad at me if I didn't, for our mentorship program. Which I feel way more people should know, that this is what Promo Kitchen does, is that we have the ability to connect you with these thought leaders and these industry moguls and these amazing people as a way to help you grow yourself, like no matter what level you're at. And we're always looking for more mentors and more mentees. But I'll talk to people where I'll say, like, this is a great initiative, you should sign up for this. And they're like, oh, I didn't know it happened. And it's like, why didn't we reach it to you? And yeah, and you're right, like package and accessibility on it. How do we make sure we're doing it right?
Conventional wisdom once suggested that took 7 marketing touch points to get a reaction. And now I believe the number has been upped to 12 because we're bombarded with so much.
It's like 18 to 20 right now.
Okay. So
yeah.
it's this many.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot. The reality is that most of us will send out a message, we'll send an email, we'll have a reminder, you know, whatever it might be. And then we take our collective foots off the gas pedal. I think that you cannot communicate value enough. By the same token, we all have limits with our time, with messaging. So you run the risk with certain things. Of overdoing it. Emails, as a for instance, you know, you can sour somebody pretty quickly on that by being the everyday knock at the door. One of the things that I happen to be enamored of right now is the return to snail mail and what a friend once referred to as lumpy mail. Something with size, with texture. Or even one of those priority envelopes. You get a priority envelope, you're going to open it up. You're simply going to open it up, unless it says like Publishers Clearinghouse boldly on the outside. Then you're probably not.
Yeah.
But different things. We're all guilty of using the current sweetheart, which is electronic media, to message. I think that it needs that. All of these different organizations would do well to consider the multimedia approach and continue to message strongly. Like you said, the mentorship program is huge, and so valuable. I've volunteered as a mentor before, and I was fortunate to have had some mentors early in my career and even later in my career. But without that conduit, without the Promo Kitchen conduit. Now, man, that's something there's a need there. There's an unmet need there, and as you alluded to, there are people who are still unaware. So
yeah, and it's important. Is like you make sure what you do, and as with every marketing and everything else you do, you work hard at it. You build a plan. Then you tell people what you do, and then you tell them again, and then you tell them one more time, and then you just send a reminder email
of what you told them.
Of what you told them, and then work on it some more, and then tell them again.
Right.
So you got to keep working on it. But yeah, and I think you're right. It's like what you put into something is what you get out of it. And if you're gonna put your money into an organization, make sure that it's not just sending a check and showing up at a trade show, because we're way more than that. And or just showing up for like the mixers, like engage, be part of it, find them on social media. And if they're worth it, then you'll let them in your life. And if they're not, then we work on it. But anyway, well, Scott, thank you so much for your time and being part of our deep dive of this month and for this week's topic. We want to thank you. We want to thank Maple Ridge Farms for being a sponsor, and everyone go sign up for the mentorship program and go be part of things and volunteering committee.
All of us who've been here want to help, and
exactly.
You're absolutely right. We get stories that'll curl your hair.
Yeah.
Uh, and we can help you navigate the landscape, but absolutely, by all means, that's, I think, one of the most powerful things that Promo Kitchen brings to the table is that mentorship program.
Yeah. Well, fabulous. And thank you. And remember, everyone join us every week at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Just follow the hashtag PromoChat. Take care.